Jace Pasquale is a very kind, thoughtful, outgoing person, and also my step-grandmother. Jace grew up in McKeesport, Pennsylvania, and attended Ithaca College in upstate New York for her freshman year. While she was in college, America needed 150,000 soldiers to fight in the Vietnam War. In order to deliver the soldiers to the Army, the government drafted college-aged individuals via lottery. Jace and many of her friends believed that the draft was unfair and questioned the need for the Vietnam War entirely. As a result, many students across the country, like Jace, protested in various manners and with various degrees of violence. Jace was very concerned about the university's closing because she was preparing to transfer to the University of New Hampshire, where she became a Division I ski racer. Student protests influenced our nation by informing citizens of their rights and empowering individuals to disagree with our government. Protesters expressed displeasure about the inequality of women's rights and racial rights, in addition to the draft. Jace's roommate asked her to join her in Washington, D.C. for a large protest 4 days after the Kent State shootings. Jace had a decision to make. She was strongly against the draftings and wanted to support the student protests and her roommate. On the other hand, Jace had finals to prepare for and wanted to accomplish her dream of becoming a skier. She was also concerned about the potential violence that was occurring in the most extreme protests. Many of the protests escalated rapidly and became out of control and violent. One of the protests caused the University Reserve Officers Training Corps building to burn down. Jace was not supportive of this action or any others that resulted in property damage or bodily injury. Jace believed that protests should have been peaceful. One of the most violent protests to occur was a rally at noon on May 4, 1970 at Kent State. Throughout the protest, 4 students were killed and many people were injured. When Jace heard about the killing, she felt upset, angry, and thought it was unnecessary, but mainly she was confused due to the lack of information. Technology was very different in the 1970s. Information was primarily shared on radio, nightly news, or heard by word of mouth. As a result, information was scarce, causing people to make assumptions. One of the main assumptions was that the shootings at Kent State were purposeful. At the time, many believed that the National Guard were at fault, and Jace, being a college student, initially sided with her peers. Looking back on it now, Jace realizes that the students contributed to the situation by provoking the guards, but Jace still doesn't see the need for guns on campus. The Kent State shootings weren't caused by one group. Instead, both sides were at fault for the horrible event that occurred. As detrimental as the protests were, nothing was as inconceivable as the way the veterans were treated after the war. It is believed that Vietnam War veterans were treated worse than any other veteran from any other war at any other time. Many people still feel bad about the way they were treated. One of the main reasons that people feel so badly is because many of the veterans didn't want to go to war. Instead, they were drafted, and when they returned, they were treated worse than any other veterans. Unlike veterans from other wars, the Vietnam veterans were only given $200 a month and were not able to find a job. As a result of the lack of money, they were forced to commit crimes. 25% of the Vietnam veterans were arrested. Many of the veterans felt abandoned by their own people and country. Jace knows a lot of people who came back from war and still have PTSD as a result. They are also very bad off because they were never given the medical help that they needed. Treating the veterans so poorly was one of the most detrimental and nasty things that occurred at that time, and one of the worst things that happened as a result of the protests. In conclusion, this was a difficult time for both Jace and all the other students. In addition to the students being concerned about schoolwork, sports, and finals, they were also concerned about protesting, war, and dying. I learned a lot after talking to Jace, and I now have a new appreciation for the many events that occurred during her lifetime, along with everything that her generation has gone through. A fun fact is this picture is one of the most iconic images from the Kent State shootings. It is a picture of a runaway leaning over a student that had been shot. This photo was taken by John Philo and was the highlight of his career. John Philo is Jace's friend's brother's brother-in-law.